So styrka, Henk, means strength in Old Norse.
In Old Norse.
Which is the North Germanic language of medieval Norway, Iceland, Denmark and Sweden up to the 14th century.
Well, sterk in Dutch
Is
means
strong. Yeah, it's not too far away.
Too far away from the old Vikings, the old Dutchies.
No.
Hey? Which I'm one of.
Welcome back to the Wheelhouse.
Oh, thanks.
Old Dutchie. Episode 117 of the Wheelhouse Cycling Podcast. I am Catherine Bates. We've got Henk Vogels here in the studio. We've got Merckxy in the control room. G'day, Merckxy.
Hey, team.
How are you today?
Yeah, welcome to Studio B.
Yes.
Studio B?
I love Studio B.
We're not going back to Studio A ever.
All right.
No, we're in lounge chairs again, and the wonderful thing about that is that between us, we have a $17,500 C68 Colnago gravel bike.
Still can't believe that we can't enter this competition.
No, that Bike Bug are giving away through the Black Friday period, but we won't be taking it home, so that's a little bit sad.
No, it is sad.
Have you been on your bike this week?
I have. I've been doing about 350 a week.
Impressive. Road bike?
Road bike only, even though I generally do a gravel ride on a Friday morning with the boys out in the pine forest with the Brumbies.
Well, today's Friday. No ride this morning?
Not this week. We call it the Darrell's ride. This is weird, right?
Who's Darrell?
Darrell Braithwaite. Horses, Brumbies.
I see.
Get it?
That's the way it's going to be, little darling.
You always got to put a song in the podcast,
I do.
Don't you?
I like a bit of songing.
Like good songer.
Hey, speaking of songs, happy birthday to Joel. He's not here today.
Happy birthday, Joel.
Because I believe he is having a birthday adventure with the lovely Mrs. Joel, with Lee.
Oh.
So who knows?
I'd rather be having my birthday with my wife instead of sitting in here
with Merckxy and
I.
No. Henk, watch your words.
Hang on, I've just dug myself a hole there.
You certainly have. Your beautiful wife and I share a birthday, incidentally, don't we? The 18th of May.
Yes,
but we do have Joel on the set, though.
Where is he?
We do.
Hey, Jolie. Up there in the corner.
He's up in the corner. Henk has...
There.
Beautiful job there.
He's there in spirit.
I feel like, when I look at it, I feel like we couldn't afford scissors to cut the photo of his head out.
It was a last-minute idea.
But, and a good idea at that.
It was a last-minute idea, so...
I haven't ridden my bike this week, nor has Merckxy.
Haven't you?
But we are planning on having some bike adventures this weekend. It's just whether to go on the road, on the mountain bike, or...
So many options.
Take the townies.
Oh, I'll be taking that gravel bike. Put some pedals on it.
Yes.
Did they leave the pedals off so I wouldn't ride it?
Potentially, although they probably thought that I was the one who would probably run off with it. So,
God, it's sexy.
It's a beautiful bike.
Isn't it?
Now, it's the off-season for the most part, unless you're an Australian rider, and then it's just getting into the summer season. Some alternate events going on too. We'll talk about the Dirty Warrny. I want to talk about some strange training methods that are popping up and whether you had any strange training methods suggested to you in the background. It's transfer season. I want to talk about a young Aussie who is going very big places. But first I want to start with a decision that has rocked Australian cycling from community level all the way up to elite and will have very big impact if it can't be reversed. And Henk, I'm referring to a statement that was released yesterday by Oz Cycling that starts as follows: the failure of the New South Wales government to secure the future of the state's only indoor velodrome has left elite and emerging athletes in limbo. Earlier this week, the New South Wales Institute of Sport announced that it would end its track cycling program due to continued uncertainty over the future of the Dunk Grey velodrome. I don't even know where to start with that. I am absolutely gutted. I am a product of the Swiss New South Wales Institute of Sport program, as is my sister, Carly McCulloch, the McGees, Sean Eadie.
Kirsten.
So many
this goes on, right?
Olympians, so many world champions, Mark Renshaw, successful ones too. Gutting it, where do we even start, Henk? Like, this is just shocking, absolutely shocking news.
It is shocking news, and you would think with the state with one of the highest populations in Australia would have the strongest and most healthy track program in Australia with a beautiful world-class velodrome that has hosted the Olympic Games. I don't know where to start either. And you would think that people would be flocking to the track with more cars on the road. So it sounds like a real failure in the New South Wales organisation to not have more people involved. Why would it do it? Is it numbers?
Well, so the track was managed by the Office of Sport for New South Wales. They have decided to hand it over to the local council, Canterbury-Bankstown Council, for management, which just throws the future of the venue completely up in the air. But let's rewind a little bit, because when the Sydney Olympics was on, that's why they built this velodrome, named it after the wonderful Dunk Gray.
Mm-hmm.
Originally, it was meant to be in a much better location, located quite close to the Olympic Village in Homebush. Mm. And then the next idea was to have it slightly down the road, very close to where I grew up, off Parramatta Road in Marylands. And actually, I grew up on Marylands, let's call it tentatively a velodrome, but a beautiful little facility. Neither of them could go ahead, ostensibly because of a rare frog that they found on the development site. So they wouldn't build because of the frog. They wouldn't relocate the frog. I understand, Merckxy, you have been telling me that frogs are very important to the ecosystem. That's correct?
Yeah, was it a quacking frog? We have a quacking frog at our house.
Little diversion. Henk, the other night I was going crazy, and I went out and I said to Merckxy, you've got to come into the bedroom. I think the neighbours bought a duck. And he looked at me like I was mad. And Merckxy, what was the noise that I was referring to?
Oh, you want me to?
I do. I want you to give me a...
Quack, 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 quack.
Right.
That's a frog.
That's a frog all night. It does not stop. It's called a quacking frog.
A quacking frog.
And look, I'm not happy about the quacking frog, but Merckxy tells me
right outside your window
that it means that it's a very healthy ecosystem.
It is. If the frogs are around, it's a good place to be.
Okay.
See.
So a lot of love for the frogs, but that's why the Olympic Velodrome then got moved out because of lobbying from Canterbury Bankstown out to where it currently is in Bankstown. In terms of Sydney geography, it is not a good place for a velodrome. It is very hard for everybody to get to.
There.
So that from the very get-go, everybody said this is a bad idea, especially for longevity of facilities and making sure that it gets used. If it was in a better location, it would be used so much more. But you can't really take school trips there. It's too far away.
But I disagree. So I see the big picture with that stuff. So yes, it might be a bit hard to, like up here, Chandler Velodrome, the Anamias Velodrome, Chandler is not really anywhere close to Brisbane. It's out of the way. Midvale in Perth is in the middle of nowhere on the freaking side of the highway.
But does Midvale get used?
Well, it does get used, but I believe it's got to do with promotion of racing. Like if people want to race the track and they have healthy numbers, there's no problem with your program. So if there's interest in that aspect of the sport, if there's lots of good racing on a Friday and Saturday night, in the traditional track racing sense, in those seasons, then you have a healthy track program. So if it sounds as though there isn't a healthy track program anymore, so I want to know why they've stopped it. Is it because of it's in the middle of nowhere, or is it because the organisers can't put on enough races, or when the numbers are not getting to the track?
And the maintenance is high. I don't know.
And that too, expensive running an indoor velodrome too.
It's just disappointing from the perspective of too. How important it has been in my life and my legacy. And honestly, if my grandfather and father were alive for this moment, they would be absolutely gutted.
Horrified.
Gary Sutton, I'll have to give Sutto a ring. This will break his heart. The NSWIS program that he and Brad McGee have built, my sister's been there, Rebecca McConnell is there a lot. This is just gutting. But let's talk about the athletes, because you work with a lot of athletes through, a lot of different avenues. You've got some coaching as well that you're doing.
Yep.
Ollie Bledden is an athlete that you've worked with, an Olympic gold medalist,
Yes.
by the way, on the track.
Yep.
Now, he's not from New South Wales. If he was from New South Wales, what would you do now?
Get out of there.
You'd tell him to get out.
Yeah, and most do. Well, what is he going to do? If the federation and the track's not open or is not being handled properly, you have to go to another venue, and that's Adelaide or Perth or
if you're 15
Brisbane.
and you want to be a track cyclist, what do you do?
Yeah, good point. Exactly. So it's shutting down the next generation of athletes in New South Wales.
It's shutting down every generation. I mean, maybe they can go back to Tempe, which is the concrete track where I grew up.
How fun was racing the track as a little tacker?
Was built, a big concrete track, beautiful concrete track, but built on landfill. And so parts of the track sunk, different slabs of concrete.
So there's a bit of a dip.
But then you would hit the lip of the concrete. Oh, you'd hit it hard.
I know the Lake Munga velodrome, and its nickname was Lake Mongrel, had a cobble section down the back straight.
Oh.
So, like corrugations.
Yeah.
So I actually grew up as like 10, 12-year-old with my old man with an angle grinder out at Lake Mongrel, trying to smooth out the corrugations on. But every young kid should actually go and do the carnivals down in Tassie or up in North Queensland, and because that, everyone's on the beers and the outside having with their family, and then you chuck your bike over the fence and you start the next
it's fun.
Scratch race and things like that. I think it's more family friendly, and I think that those are things that maybe we need to get back to.
And I think it elevates the importance of things like Blackline Track League that
absolutely.
Gives kids the opportunity to race, although albeit maybe not at the New South Wales velodrome in the future.
Well, surely they're still going to run that down there in Dunk Grey. We'll have to get the bear on the line.
I mean, what doesn't make sense to me is why change of management would precipitate the end of a program. Like, unless they are pulling it down, then why?
Yeah.
So I think I'm missing a piece, and there's nothing in the media release that clarifies
why
that. They just talk about being in regular discussion with the council to determine the velodrome's future. But unless they've determined that the velodrome will be dismantled, then I don't understand why the change of ownership means N-Swiss can't have a track program.
Yeah.
We're missing details.
Yeah, we need detail. They won't be pulling the track down. I just think they've just decided that there's not enough money in the New South Wales budget for a track cycling program.
What a crock.
So
just quietly.
Yeah. Speaking of velodromes, guys, Kevin Brogden velodrome, you know where that is?
Do I? Where is
we've been there.
Which velodrome, mate?
Kevin Brogden velodrome.
Is that the Bundy one?
Yeah, it's in Bundy.
Oh, yeah.
So 22nd and 23rd of November is the Bundy Cycling Spectacular on the Kevin Brogden velodrome.
We went up a couple of years ago. It was brilliant.
There's bar, beers.
Christo, the old legend. Remember Ian Christensen?
Yes.
Yeah, he was up there.
That's it.
He rides with my group
rode there.
sometimes when he can be asked. But he made a comeback and did that carnival, and I think he got rubbed in a few events because he was racing like he was back in the 90s.
Yeah.
He was such a good bunch race rider. I learnt a lot growing up from the way he rode bunch races.
Yeah, he's champion.
Back then, girls didn't race like that, and that became a bit of a secret weapon for me. I started racing like those guys that I was watching who were not afraid to go between gaps that maybe weren't there, and he wore the New South Wales skin suit.
Yeah, talking about watts, I don't know for the watt geeks out there, you see like Harry Levrayson the other day. I think I saw him reel on Instagram, and he does like 2,200 watts in the sprint, right? So to give you some idea on how strong Ian Christensen was, he made a mini comeback a couple of years, like I told you, and he had a power meter on his bike. And for people who know Mooloolaba and the Sunshine Coast, there's a tiny little rise. It's actually where the Olympic road race is going to be in 2032. Alex Hill. So he just chucked in a big gear and did a sprint up over Alex Hill. He hit 2,080 watts.
What?
He's a little fella.
And yeah,
He's not tall. He's not like a
he's
2
like
metre.
45, 46, 47 years old, and he did 2,000 watts, and this is on 150K a week. So to give you an idea of how much of a legend he was. But
Raw talent.
yeah.
Well, we had a ball.
Can't buy that stuff.
We had a cracking time up there. But anyway, racing starts 5 p.m. Friday on the 22nd. Yeah. So
Get amongst
it
it
was
if
really
you're
fun.
around.
Yeah, it's good.
It is a good time for community events. I want to talk about Dirty Warrny, but before that, this week, I just want a little personal moment here for you, Henk. You took your daughter to her formal.
I did.
Aw.
I did, yes. Elkie.
Shucks.
She first one to graduate. The other two are going into trades, even though they finished year 12. But she graduated, and I was very, very lucky. I was very proud of her, but I was very, very lucky that I was a good friend of mine, Duncan McKellar. He lent me a V12 Ferrari for the trip up the highway.
Speaking of what?
That's a bit of a fancy ride. So you picked Elkie up and took her.
Yes, dropped her off. At,
So you rocked up at the formal.
Yes, in a Ferrari.
In the Ferrari.
Yep, good old Gympie High, and rocked up in a Ferrari. She was pretty proud as much as I was. So it was pretty special.
That is very
and
special.
very, very lucky that I got to borrow that.
Lots of people
incredibly
taking
powerful
photos.
machine. Yes, there was lots of head turning, I can tell you.
Yeah.
Especially with all the Fords and the Holdens and everything else doing burnouts down the road, and I've rocked up in a V12, so we trumped everyone.
Were you driving like 20k an hour below the speed limit because you were like, oh my gosh, or
yes.
were you like, oh, I really want to open this thing up?
No, I was very petrified about having any kind of damage to it.
Driving Miss Daisy. You were
Yes.
driving Miss Daisy.
Yes. Well, Danita and I drove up in it, so I was like, if I went 2k over the speed limit, she'd just give me a clip around the ear off. I'm just joking.
Everyone needs a Danita.
Yes, that's right.
Keep them in line. Now, the reason that segues so wonderfully, his son has just signed a 2-year Neo-Pro contract with EF.
Yes.
Tell us about that. Alistair McKellar. That's great news. Great place for him to be.
Yeah. He's actually fallen right on his feet there because, as you know now, the under 23 scenario of how everything is in the world now, it's so cutthroat to get a contract. So Al's had a really, really good under 23 career. He was in Israel Premier Tech for a couple of years. He finished this year with Axel Merckx's team, Axion, Hagen's Berman, Jayco. He had a stagiaire role for the last couple of months where he didn't really get too much opportunities. As a stagiaire, you generally work for someone else. But for his under 23 career, he won stages in Aosta, in Portugal. He's had some really big, like in the under 23 Liège-Bastogne-Liège, he was 4th against the best riders in the world. So always should have got a contract, but it's so hard to get a contract. But for a kid who broke Plappy's under 23 record by 55 seconds.
What record was that?
The time trial national in time trial nationals in Ballarat. He did the double, the road race and the time trial. So well deserved for him to move up into the world tour, and what a great family too, because Duncan not just has lovely cars. He's been a massive supporter of ARA Skip Capital, which used to be Pro Racing Sunshine Coast. So he's been a sponsor of our team for the last 6 or 7 years. As a foundation sponsor, has put so much money into the sport. Al came through that program and then went straight into Israel and then Hagen's and now to EF. So it's great that family's just had so much to do with cycling, and really well deserved for Al. So yeah, pretty special for me to see him go up there, and I think he's the next generation, the next kind of Ben O'Connor type. Really good in uphill small groups when it's hard and there's like 10 or 15 guys left. When it's the hilly days, he rides really well. He can time trial, can turn into a GC rider. But
well, if he's got the base where he's climbed so well, but he time trials so well, early signs are great for GC potential versus a rider who climbs so well but has to really work on the time trialing.
No, he's got both dialed. So he just needs to mature a little bit and get those big 100, about 100 days of racing in his legs in the World Tour, then you come of age. So, looking forward to that.
Duncan listen to the show, Hank?
He does sometimes.
Okay. Shout out.
G'day, Dunk.
Yeah.
Yep, legend.
Always open to sponsorship if
Yeah.
It's so wonderful to see these young riders get these new big opportunities, especially when they haven't necessarily been like Caleb Ewan. When he was a junior, everybody was talking about how
fast he is,
and how he'd do this and how he'd do that. But when they make their way through really consistently through the under-23 ranks each year, getting better, it's quite a different trajectory, and it's well earned because they're not the guys who get talent scouted at 17 from the European teams and signed. Deals. Yeah,
and Pat Eddy signed with DSM too, so he's the same kind of rider. Has just kind of been on the cusp and just constant. He's had some good, consistent results, and they love him. It's exciting under-23s coming up. Jackson Medway too. He's going to be a beast going to Tudor. He's a time trial, nemesis. He's
we talked about him early in the year when he had some epic results. He's a bit of an animal, isn't he?
Yeah, and he's had some really bad luck. He's broken his leg this year. He's crashed again. He's he's going with Cancellara's team, Tudor, so he's going to fit really well in there, and I think he's going to be a bit of a jet too. So there are some exciting under-23s coming through, and so I'll be looking forward to that moving forward into 2025.
Well, world cycling is changing a little bit. This week we had the retirement, Merckxy, of Mark Cavendish. I don't say finally because we don't love him. It's just because I feel like we've been talking about it since episode 1 of now 117, 118 on the Wheelhouse, right? But he's come out. Now, two very funny things. Firstly, Hank, all of the major news outlets, and I'm talking non-cycling, I'm talking BBC, ABC, CNN. Mark Cavendish went out on a high with a final victory. What a fitting moment for him to end such an illustrious career on. That victory was the ASO Singapore Crit.
Yes. Why are you looking at me like that? Really funny, Kate.
Well, because I remember this time last year having a very funny conversation
about the same
with
thing.
Joel Spreadborough and explaining to Joel that it was predetermined
who was going to
take the victory, and he was not really understanding
of
how, why, what.
What do you mean?
So it's wonderful that they made the decision before the race started that Cavendish would get that honour.
Yeah, whatever you do, don't watch a Tour de France sprint and then watch the Singapore sprint. And if you put them on the same screen, I think you'll understand what I'm talking about.
Yes. Look, it was a nice honour, though, from the organisers and from his colleagues.
Did you see the Guard of Honour?
To have him win.
That was cool.
I didn't. No. Tell me about the Guard of Honour.
So all the riders had their bikes standing up and they were all in a row and they spun the front wheel and Cav rode through it, and as he came to them, they moved their bike out the way.
That's nice. See, that is fitting.
That is cool.
Yeah.
So my actual mum and dad, when they got married, they walked through a ring of front wheels.
Did they?
And they just threw the confetti through the front wheels, and mum and dad ducked under the wheels.
Oh, fantastic. Didn't you?
So long ago.
Haven't I seen a wedding photo with you and Danita with a bike involved?
Yes. Duncan McKellar, Craig Smith and I, shout out to big Craig Smith because I know he listens to the Wheelhouse Pod. Legend. He's another legend. We actually turned up on our bikes. We rode to the house and jumped off, and that's how we arrived. So yeah, a little bit of cycling in
cycling
that,
theme.
Cycling theme.
Writing down some ideas here.
Yeah. Getting to planning, Merckxy.
Oh, I'm into that. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I did. I'll, cross the fingers.
One lucky girl over there. Hey, you can have a cycling wedding.
Oh, yeah. Confetti through the wheels.
Colnago gravel bike.
Oh, hey, oof.
Gravel wedding.
But I do have a question about the Singapore thing. I guess you can't bet on that game, that race.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, surely.
No,
surely not.
No.
Not if it's predetermined. Just like the
we know
you can bet on boxing.
Yeah, but we know it's predetermined. We could open a full can of worms here. we could totally
Probably
open
more
a full
predetermined than people realise across the board.
Everyone
to be
knew
honest.
before he got there that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Anyone in the cycling world, put it that way, who knows cycling
Yeah.
and his personal circumstances of his last race and the respect that he has over the last 25 years, I think, yeah. So
I'm glad they did it. Now, the other interesting thing was in all the interviews afterwards, he was quoted as saying that he wouldn't make it as a professional these days if he started. And he said that nowadays modern cycling and sprinting is completely based on how strong you are. He was known from the very beginning as having a number of attributes. One was incredible acceleration from 0 to top speed, just unmatched.
yeah,
Because of his stature.
it's like Robbie actually.
They're very similar.
Very similar.
Also smaller stature,
Yep.
which helps, and Caleb Ewan, which helps their acceleration because we think about power to weight all the time with climbers, but if you think about power to weight with acceleration for sprinters, it's also comes into the fore. But he was also known for if he got dropped, he could accelerate exceptionally well from a high speed. So it wasn't just from 0 to high speed. It was between 55 and 70k an hour. He could continue to accelerate. Not all sprinters are the same.
No.
These days, a lot of our top sprinters, if we look at Philipsen, if we look at Gourmet,
Milan.
if we look at Milan, they're big, powerful
Big units.
athletes. They're big units. They're not small. They're not ducking through holes in the bunch and under people's elbows. They're just knocking out a ridiculous number of watts and getting it done. What do you think about the comment from Cav? Because I can see where he comes from, but when I read it to you, you were a bit like, huh?
Nah, so I reckon if he was 21 now, I reckon he'd still win the same. I know that sounds like a big call, but even in my era, like Pataki had, in my era, which went from 96 to 2008, like we had big Cipollini lead-out trains, Alessandro Pataki lead-out trains, and Robbie McEwen was before Cav. So they crossed over a little bit, those two sprinting against each other. Everyone's always got a lead-out or a lead-out man in 1990, 2000, 2010, or the lead-out lady, lead-out woo man.
Whoa, man.
Lead-out woe man. So I don't agree with him that. I think speed is speed. And I think that every sprint's different. Sometimes you have these gigantic lead-outs. Sometimes you just come from cover. Do you know what I mean? You have someone drop you in. That's what I used to do with Robbie. I used to drop Robbie at like the 900 metre, 800 metre, and he'd find his way because he could do anything. Some sprinters just have to be fourth wheel for the last 6K and accelerate off the wheel. Some guys just have that pure speed. Cav's been able to do both. But yes, when you have Renshaw leading you out, Henderson leading Caleb Ewan out, like there's always one guy who can help out. And everyone has that. You just don't hear of those guys. In every team, there's a lead-out man. I don't agree with him. I still think, but he's saying that now because he's at the end of his career. But if he turned 21 now, I reckon he would still win 30.
Well, it's interesting because he says it now because what does it matter? It's just his view on the way out.
Yeah.
But it also lends to a lot more conversation
Around what?
around it all. I do
How
think
cycling's changed, you think?
Yeah, I mean, cycling has changed so much. Like it's more data-driven. Nutrition, I want to talk about nutrition a little bit today because I have some new stuff in from Sturka.
Sturka.
And I want to talk about that a little bit.
How do you say it?
Sturka.
Sturka. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's like these weird brand names like Chicon that should really be
I call it Skycon. I call it
called
Skycon.
Chicon.
I know.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're like, I know, I just don't care.
Yeah, I just want to call it what I
just
want to
wanna
call it.
Well,
But
Sturka.
anyway,
But
Stoker,
anyway,
yeah.
so much has changed and evolved and training methodology and everything like that. But at the end of the day, when you have a scrappy rider who knows how to ride, knows how to navigate a bunch, sees the racing without needing all the instructions but can just read it in the moment.
Peter Sagan.
Yeah, but you're right, Peter Sagan. Like those
exactly.
athletes, they may not win as many because things have evolved a bit. But I don't think it means that they wouldn't still have a very prominent place in the sport.
Yeah, I think it's changed a lot, like the sports science immensely. And we'll talk about the nutrition in a minute.
Well,
but the nutrition is like, now it's so key. It's like there's a formula now. If you go out of that formula, you're dropped. That's the difference. Before, everyone used to have a banana and a rice cake and a Belgian waffle, and some sugar in your bottles, and then you had to work it out. But now if you have to have a certain amount of carbs in every hour, otherwise you're gone.
Have you ever looked back at your career and wondered how good you'd be if you'd operated under the knowledge we have now, around
there's
nutrition
so many things
and
I would
training?
change. Well, we haven't got enough time on this podcast to talk about the difference between the 90s and the 2020s. It's gigantic.
I'll find a way to talk about it a little bit.
We'll
before
have to
that,
get into that one of these days.
Before we waffle, I want to talk about the Dirty Warrny. Their slogan is for glory, for gravel, for guts.
There's Slogo.
Did I say
It's
slogan?
Slogo, yeah.
Well, half slogan, half logo.
Yeah,
Half
like
slogo.
Slogo. For glory, for gravel, for guts. It happens to coincide with Movember. So if you go on their website, there's a big thing about November, which makes the Dirty Warrny riders with a dirty mo really fit in. The fellas.
It's the new thing, gravel. It's incredible.
246 kilometres
On gravel.
of gravel from Geelong down to Warrnambool. Now, the women's was won by Tara Nayland and Emma Viotto. After 9 hours and 11 minutes, they had a sprint finish.
Jeez.
9 hours on a bike for a race. That just shows you the difference in speed on like men's or women's normal Warrnambool is less than 6. So that's how different and how much it's
hardcore, isn't it?
How hard.
It's hardcore. So the men's Scott Bowden, he won solo. Now, he's a 2016 Olympian, mountain bike and road race. If you remember, he rode the road race as well. Dylan Sunderland was second, Connor Sens was third.
So good to see Dylan Sunderland racing.
It is. You're a bit of a Dylan Sunderland fan, aren't you? You think he should have a contract?
I think he was one of those really unlucky riders who is still so good and should have, it's such a tough climate in cycling at the moment. But he's one of those guys that should be on EF. I believe that he is so good. He can climb. He can do a lead out. He just got unlucky, and it's certainly not an easy sport, and for guys like him to miss out. But really good to see him involved because he's a bit of a beast. I mean, the guy just loves doing a 5-hour ride. Well, so he just loves getting out and doing a huge ride.
Scott Bowden, he's from a mountain bike background, but Connor Sens, Dylan Sunderland, Brianna Samuel, she does a lot of e-sport as well. Matilda Reynolds, Sarah Gigante. We've got Oscar Gallagher.
Good to see Sarah doing it.
140K. Why do you think the roadies are doing these big gravel races, the distance, but also the gravel?
Well, it's a good time to do gravel because I don't know if you do gravel races in the middle of your road season if you have a contract. But it's so popular now, gravel.
Why?
It's transitioning.
Why do you reckon it's so popular?
No cars.
Yeah, that's a big one.
No cars, freedom. And you know what, Kate? It's so fun. Gravel is so fun. I mean, it's not mountain bike where you're taking massive drop-offs, cliffs, and, it's full technical. Gravel is like a road race with, a bit more freedom, a bit more fun, a bit more sliding, It's and it's not, and I wouldn't say it's not as serious. It's really serious now, but it still has that cultish, he's a gravel racer, he's, kind of a weekend warrior or a step up from there where anyone can do it. And the Warny's been great like that because anyone's been able to start the Warny. So any person can do the Melbourne to Warrnambool on the road. You can just enter and you get put into A grade or elites. So, I just think, it's just a fun sport.
Oh, yeah.
I love it.
I love the idea of events like Dirty Warrny because it's community.
Gears and beers.
Gears and beers in Wagga.
In Wagga.
My sister did that and had an amazing time, and the kids got involved as well.
I did it with Phil Anderson.
Oh, did you?
That's the
Well,
last
Phil
time
did Dirty Warrny. He did the full thing.
Oh, he'd do it with 2 fingers up his nose, Phil.
Hey, Hank.
He's that strong.
What was that show? That chat you told me about Phil before the show? Something about riding with Phil. What was that?
Don't throw me under the bus again, Merckxy.
Merckxy's very good at that. Remember, he showed our feet on camera last week.
You can't say anything around Merckxy. He just got your measure, hasn't he?
You can't.
No, we Phil and I were the last. We actually were top 5 in gears and beers. This is like a long time ago. I might have.
Pretty
one
impressive,
of the first
though.
ones. But I had to have knee surgery after that race. I went that hard.
Oh, not from a fall,
no,
but just wear and
going
tear.
so hard for however long. And then, of course, I got straight on the beers after the finish. Gears and beers, bikes and beers.
I see the appeal of gravel. I bought myself a gravel bike for my 40th birthday. Didn't I, Merckxy? It's beautiful.
You did, and just for the listeners, he said he dropped Phil.
He dropped Phil.
I think Phil. I may have told
Should
a pork.
we give him a call?
I may have made a pork pie there.
Anyway.
I think he punctured.
Hey, hold on, but you still beat him, whether he punctured or whatever.
It's about the only time.
Were you
I've ever
across
beat
the
him.
line before him?
Yes, okay.
There we go.
There we go.
He punctured out
G'day,
of the front
Phil.
crew. So.
Phil listens too, so there you go.
We won a 94 Com Games gold medal together.
Yeah,
right?
so you've got that lived experience.
Back before most
so
people who were even born who were listening to this podcast.
So you can shit can him now.
Oh, no, I would never shit
You're not
Phil.
shit canning him. You're just saying that you beat him. But no,
Only
cool
time
event. Are we, Merckxy, did you say we're going to do it next year?
Yeah, I'd like to give it a crack.
Gears and beers or Dirty Warrny?
Well, either, just on my Colnago.
Yeah.
Look at it.
On yours?
Look at it.
Well, okay, so
my
let's
God.
talk about this beautiful bike because it's a
Okay.
C68
Oh, my God.
Wheels.
Colnago gravel bike. To go into the running to win this, you need to spend $149.99 and
At Bike
Bug.
Yep.
Every transaction that you do that between now and December 13th, you will get an entry.
There it is. Look at it.
So in theory, if you want to buy 5 different things that are worth $150, split it out over 5 transactions.
Pair
and
of shoes, a helmet,
Yeah.
front derailleur or a new derailleur.
You need to spend that $149.99 on anything Shimano Laser or Pro because Shimano are also supporting this. But $17,500 gravel bike.
It is beautiful.
That is some really good, like, if you think
Do
how
it.
many people are buying just those things, those 3 products, Pro, Shimano and Laser, and who are spending that much in the next how long?
You've got till December 13th.
So 3 weeks, is my date correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So in the next 3 weeks, so the chances of you winning this bike are pretty high.
Yep. You can...
Can you just pat it for me, Kate? There you go. Look at that.
It's
That's for the
beautiful.
promo shot.
Good girl.
Yeah,
you
good
go.
girl.
Good girl.
Well, look, I named my beautiful Colnago road bike Ophelia. I don't know what we can name this
Colin.
darling. Colin.
Colin Colnago.
Colin. Colin.
You know, Colin Carpenter.
Right, yep.
I love that show.
Colin. All
Comedy
right,
Club.
Colin it is. Make sure that
Cole.
you join up. You can also join the bunch at Bike Bug, where it's a loyalty program. You get $1 for every $1 you spend. Once you're over 500 points, it's 1.5 points per $1 you spend.
Are we allowed to join
You
that?
can,
or are we
yes, we
banned
can
from
join that.
as well?
We can join that. You can redeem for gift cards. You get a birthday reward. You get early access to sales. Speaking of which, there's another 2 weeks of Black Friday sales. Over 6,000 products, up to 80% off.
Jesus.
Get on it.
Oh.
So this beautiful bike. But yeah, I do. What you say about why it's so appealing, that it's relaxed, it's off the roads,
And it's dirty.
and it's dirty.
Oh,
It's kind of
let's
fun.
not go down that rabbit hole, Merckxy.
It is. But I guess even, with Amy Gillett Foundation, we want to see more people on bikes.
Yeah.
But first, we want people to be able to ride bikes without fearing death.
Yes, absolutely.
A lot of the other advocacy bodies are just about more people on bikes more often. But if they're being killed, I'd rather we fix that.
Yeah, I mean, but
And
the thing is,
gravel's a good way to do that too.
But gravel is not 100% gravel. Any gravel ride is generally about 60-40.
Yeah,
so you
you're
got to
still
ride.
ducking onto the roads.
Yeah, you're going. I do a 40K loop, the Darrell's loop, and I ride 12K there, do a 40K and 12K. I get like an 80K ride, and it's fantastic. But I love it.
To see the horses.
Yeah.
So you could do the Darrell's loop on Cole, the
Yeah.
Colnago.
I
Do
could get
Darrell
Cole
on
to
Cole.
do Darrell's. Yeah.
Wow.
Good heavens. Now, in the news this week, bearing in mind it's off-season, so you get some weird pickled news, but it's popped up again about this whole CO2 tolerance training, like carbon monoxide training. It's kind of the search for the 1%, right? All these marginal gains. But it's pretty dangerous. Do you think that in trying to avoid ever going down that path of the horrible doping history that we've had, that teams and riders are pushing everything that's technically legal to the absolute limit? Do you think, as a team director, what would you do if one of your athletes came to you and said, I've been doing some research, I've been listening to the Huberman Lab podcast and Andrew Huberman tells me that if I do this, if it doesn't kill me, it'll make me stronger. What's your view on that?
I think everyone should be open to everything that's safe. Like, Wim Hof breathing, don't go down and, try and do 37 metres underwater at minus 15
Well, so
or whatever.
he's the Iceman, so he kind
Yeah.
of teaches you to
breathing methods.
regulate body function through breathing. And it can be dangerous, but it's not, everything comes with a warning label these days, but it's reasonably safe. But carbon monoxide rebreathing is not safe in the same way as cold water exposure or cold exposure.
No, I mean, I don't know anything about this subject, Kate, but even just hearing carbon monoxide training or breathing exercises makes me super nervous and I want nothing to do with it. But that is kind of scary. And didn't Pog say he doesn't know what, he does not use that? I've heard that quote.
Yeah.
That he has never heard of it or he doesn't use it.
Well, I don't know though.
Have to
If he
find that
doesn't, if he hasn't heard of it and he doesn't use it, is someone just making this up?
No,
I don't think so.
UAE and Visma use it.
But he doesn't. He's
Well,
saying.
I don't know.
He's flat out said no, he doesn't.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. It's this kind of science pushing makes riders very vulnerable because they're not experts. They have to trust the staff that they're working with. I think that comes with all sorts of risks. Was there anything maybe not quite as dangerous as carbon monoxide rebreathing that you reflect back on and think that was a little bit odd that they got us to do? That at the time they were so convinced that it was the thing?
Well, this has gone kind of full circle, and we're going to freak out a bit at the start of the story. But
Okay.
before the '96
All right,
Olympics,
brace myself. You okay in there, Merckxy?
When those lovely photos were taken from the Atlanta Dream book that I was.
You're talking about
doing.
your nudes.
Yeah, the nudes.
Yes, when you had the Frank and Beans out for
yes.
everyone to see.
No Frank.
Whoa.
No
It's
Frank
true.
I
and
don't know
no
what
beans.
photos you've Googled.
No Frank and
There's no Frank and Beans. What have you got?
How you been caught, Kate?
Wow.
Oh, boy.
But no, getting back to these. We did heat training in 1995 off season, and we were in a chamber where they shove a probe up the clacker.
Oh, yes, to monitor body temperature.
Correct.
The ladies did that
Like
too.
a Christmas
Yes.
turkey.
Yeah, no, it's like literally not even the
Yeah.
width of like that. It's
A
just
little probe.
tiny. They lube you up
Up the
up the wahoo. Oh no, that's a kicker. Up the wazoo. And they just cranked on the heat back in '96, but because that was Atlanta in July, it's just ridiculously hot. So we did heat training in '96, and then it went away, and now it's back. Now heat training is just as effective is altitude training.
Well, they do say that was part of the reason behind Matt Hayman's success at Roubaix was that when he was injured and he was doing so much indoor training, his body temperature was rising so high because you can't cool as much as you need on indoor trainers, unless it's very high tech, which he wasn't doing, and that heat tolerance stressed his body enough that he got some really big physiological advantages that he maybe wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah, well, that goes to show you that works. And it does work, and they do it in unison now. So they're going like midday in the heat at altitude.
So they're training in the heat of the day.
Correct.
At altitude now.
I know some of our girls right now are training in the middle of the day now for Perth, for the Perth
For the National Championship.
They're going out at 1 o'clock in Queensland weather to start that heat training for Perth, because Perth's going to be bloody hot, and for our nationals over there in January. But getting back to, sorry, Merckxy, getting back to what this first question we're talking about is like any weird stuff you did for recovery. We just got on the beers. That was a pretty good way to recover.
But was that recommended?
In the 90s.
Did they say, like, go get on the beers?
Well, you got to rehydrate. There was carbohydrates in there.
Yep. So it's fluid.
So on the beers.
It's carbohydrates.
Yes. Didn't really work. Didn't really work, that recovery. But I wasn't the only one in that generation where that was the norm.
That was the norm.
So we're going to talk more about our generation on one or more of these podcasts, because it's some scary, like crazy shit that went on.
What did you
Sorry, Merckxy, I cut you right
remember
off.
we saw at your sister's house when Sarah Roy was there.
Yes.
At Christmas last year. And she was training in the garage. She looked like someone from Breaking Bad. She had the full suit on, like what forensic police wear.
Yeah, she had the full...
Smashing it out on the trainer, and she was sweating.
Yep, with the hoodie and everything on.
Yeah.
It was the full
So
white
was she
suit.
training for nationals then?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
So a similar kind of thing. It's the strangest thing, if I reflect back, there's two things that we used to do. One which I haven't heard of since, and that was as soon as you are home from training for hours, lie with your legs up the wall.
Oh.
So we used to get home and just lie with our legs up the wall and not move. And they said, don't walk around. That wears you out. Legs on the wall.
That's weird, because you need blood going through your legs.
Yeah, to recover.
You need blood going through your legs to actually flush it out. But I will say, back in the day, we used to go and walk into like a pool, up to your waist for, make your legs feel better. You massage or go and like stand in the ocean if you're near a beach or in the pool. And
like
you cool off.
For the cold
Yeah,
effect,
for cold. So that's come back.
That has come back, yep.
The ice baths have come back, and now that's par for the course. That's par
for the course, very much.
Especially in the Tour and Welter like that, and ice vests, keeping the core temperature
Pog
down.
had the ice, was it Pog had the ice bath in a van at the Tour?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he'd sit in there straight after the race.
Oh, look, Merckxy and I are watching/rewatching Ted Lasso at the moment, and Roy Kent, the captain of Liverpool, love that show. He was in a wheelie bin of ice in the show yesterday. So there you go, across the board.
Yeah. Well, let's see. So some of the old school thinking wasn't that far off. Like, obviously, the legs in the air thing, maybe not so much.
Yeah, look, that's gone out of fashion, but there's
on
some
the
other
beers,
things.
maybe not so much either.
No, but actually on that, I do remember a sports scientist telling me... Dave Martin.
Legend.
Bless him, Dave Martin. We
need him on the show.
We do. He did so many incredible
Is he a doctor?
studies. Yes, Dr. Dave Martin.
So Doc Martin.
He is. Doc Martin.
You just couldn't hold that in, could you, Merckxy?
No, that was a good one.
I like it.
He's a sports physiologist, a bloody legend of one too. And I remember talking to him about alcohol, and he was like, well, it hasn't really been studied and it's not something you'd encourage. But in theory, having a drink of alcohol, be it beer or wine, after, in theory, again, kicks your gives your liver a bit of a boost and therefore helps to process the lactic acid that is coursing through your veins and potentially could lead to faster clearance of lactic acid. So it's a bit of a, fine line, but
Oh, Geraint Thomas
Maybe.
loves a beer.
Our team doctor in 95, 96, Gert Landers, he was like, a glass of wine every night is better for you to have one glass of wine every night than not having a glass of red wine every night for the tannins for your heart.
Well, then
So I took that to another level.
the Germans and the Dutch used to say if you're sick at all, like if you even feel like sickness is coming on, they would give us this little shot of
Vodka.
Well, it was like vodka or something
Schnapps.
like a Jägermeister
Tequila?
kind of this ridiculously strong little shot of alcohol at
The Russians
night.
do that. The Russians do that, but what they do is they actually put it in the back of their throat because it's like 60% proof or whatever.
And so it just kills everything?
So,
Is that-
well, that's the idea around it. I mean, you could have a shot, like everything in moderation, right? But
Yeah.
I have seen that. I have seen how they do just a quick shot.
Well,
in
and
the
then
throat.
there was the very strong German belief that air conditioners make you sick.
Yes.
And so in hotel rooms, even in the middle of an Italian summer at the Giro, the air conditioner would be turned off because otherwise
in 40 degrees.
in 40 degrees.
It's just absolute insanity.
We've kind of gone off the beaten track here. But
No, but that's actually some cool stuff because it's funny how like those old traditions. Like Italians you can't not allowed to pass the salt at the dinner table if you're on an Italian team. You have to put it down because it's bad luck to pass the
it.
salt. It's like that kind of stuff is like
well, and cold
old
water
school.
was a big thing the Germans never ever did. Never ever put ice or anything in water. You didn't drink cold water. You always drank room temperature water.
Yeah, monks.
Chinese
They
did the
don't
same.
drink.
Oh,
they
really?
Drink room
Yeah,
temperature.
I took Jai Crawford once. He was sick as a dog in the Turrichingai Lake, and I took him to the doctor, and they're like, warm water.
It's only since I've been living in Queensland that I've put ice in beverages
From
because
your career?
I'm so hot. Yeah, I just
Did you never used to drink?
never. In fact, I wouldn't even drink water out of the fridge. It would always be room temperature water,
Tap water.
tap water, always.
Oh, I'm so the other way. I can't drink it if
But
it's
you
not
spend a
cold.
lot of time in America, and in America, there's always ice in drinks.
You've been putting ice in your wine too now.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
Captain
do that
Kim.
with white wine here in Queensland, otherwise it gets too hot.
exactly right.
I don't drink white wine, but
Temperature variable. We've gone to
Well,
the very non-scientific stuff. The last one I have before we actually, talk about things that are proven to work, nicotine patches. The Germans used to, the idea behind it in the German teams I was on was that it increased mental function and made you more responsive on the bike. Haven't heard about any of that since, but Huberman Lab podcast have been talking about the use of nicotine patches, how dangerous it is, how you do get mental benefits, but what a silly
good luck trying to get off
path
nicotine.
to go on. Yeah, so
It's one of the most evil things in the world.
everything does the circle, right?
Yeah.
But even if there is a little benefit to this CO2 thing, I don't know
That's
about
the
it.
scary thing because athletes will love any kind of advantage. So
Anything, right?
any kind of thing.
So we do have this beautiful Sturker here. Now, if our listeners want to go to bikebug.com/wheelhouse and you just put your name down, you can go into the running to win a value pack of this wonderful stuff. Now, why it's so interesting to me, Henk, the science behind nutrition has changed a lot. During the tour, Joel and I had a little bit of fun with bringing in how much the recommended food was, because they're saying now you have to eat such a large volume of carbohydrates per race that you almost can't eat enough. Eat as many as you possibly can.
Yep.
That it's become quite a difficult thing to keep up with. That's really different to our days. Like it was a couple of bananas and Bob's your uncle.
Yeah, and a bit of sugar in your bottle, which really didn't do anything. Could lift you up for 15 minutes and drop you back off the other side of the cliff.
But
So-
each of these gels and bars from Sturker, they have 50 to 60 grams of carbohydrates per bar.
Can I try one?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
Hank,
awesome.
it
Yeah.
goes in your mouth, just so you know.
Not like the temperature probe. Be very careful.
I could count on you. I can always count on you
Well,
for
I
one of
just
those.
wanted to make sure.
But there is the equivalent. You can hear the rustling of Hank opening this.
Oh, it's like
what
a
flavour
Rice
is it?
Krispies
Yeah, it's a
bar.
Rice Krispie bar. I think
my
it's obviously
God.
raspberry and something based on the look of it. It's got 15 grams of protein in it too. One of these gels is the equivalent to 3 bananas. It blows my mind to think that you could possibly get, without using these or this kind of product, that you could possibly get enough in for performance.
Well, nowadays.
Is it good, by the way?
How is it,
God.
mate? How
Is it good?
It's like, when you were a kid and you had those Rice Krispie, like real yummy Rice Krispie.
Yeah, like the
Cocoa
LCM
Pop.
bars or something.
Yeah, that's what they are. Unreal. But nowadays in a race, if you're not taking 100 grams of carbs an hour, you're done. You're dropped. You're out the arse. Done.
Okay.
So the speed that they're riding now up the hill, or not just up the hill, the speed that they're riding the peloton these days is so scientific. Everything is changing.
Well, so the drink mix that I've got in my hand, it has 150 milligrams of caffeine. I'll take that. But 90 grams of carbs.
That's a lot of caffeine.
It is a lot of caffeine, but there's also, so that would be the one that you'd have at the end. Like in the last hour, you'd have 90 grams of carbs and caffeine in a bottle, right?
So that's one bottle.
That's one
your
bottle.
finished bottle.
And then that's your finished bottle. And then your other bottles are 60 grams of carbs in that. So a bottle and a bar
Is enough.
or per hour. So
you need one of them and one of these gels.
Yeah.
Or a bar every hour.
every hour. That's actually pretty reasonable compared to imagining having 9 bananas per hour.
how many you couldn't carry enough in your back pocket to keep up with the amount of calories that you do expend in an hour. So,
But why has it changed so much? Because I remember feeling hunger flat, of course, and I remember feeling tired toward the end of races. But I honestly didn't ever get the feeling, especially say in hour 2 or 3, that I didn't have enough nutrition on board. But this is triple what we ever ate.
well, it's just more concentrated now.
Yeah.
And I also think, and we're going to talk about this as well when we start talking about coaching, but like you need to train on this stuff. So anyone who wants to use this stuff in racing, you've got to go out and you have to go and make your stomach used to it. And from all accounts, it's really good on your stomach. And you said it's been really good, Kate. You've tried it.
Yeah, I had a bar yesterday, and I must say it was very enjoyable.
Yeah.
It was chocolate flavoured, and it tasted like a chocolate brownie rice bar.
Yeah, they're very yummy. But so you train on it, you get used to it, the stomach gets used to it, and then in the racing, I know it sounds, we used to have these old Extran with just pure fructose syrup. That's why half my teeth have been, gone. It's just one of the byproducts of being racing in the 90s. But yeah, 100 grams of carbs, you get used to it through training per hour. And then you'll still have, that energy in the final. Because, when you're kind of starting to fatigue in the final, they're not. They're not fatiguing in the final if they're fit, obviously. They either can or they can't follow, meaning they can't, produce enough power, but they're not getting dropped because they're just running on empty.
So it's not that you'll feel better in the second hour, it's that you won't have the drop-off. You're kind of ensuring that toward the back end.
Still have enough energy.
Right.
And it's huge. And you can't do the watts if you don't have the energy.
You've got coaching clients. You do a fair bit of coaching. Do you tell your athletes how carefully do they need to look at nutrition every single training day?
It's key. They can't actually get through their training program if they're not actually putting into practice what they're doing in the races.
So it's not just
coffee shop days.
It's not just about trying it so that your stomach handles it on race day. It's also about getting through the training load.
If you can't get through the training load, you're never going to get any better.
They used to do these. Oh God, these are memories, not necessarily good ones. They used to do this fasted training where you'd go out and do 100 Ks without eating or without drinking? Do they? How do they think
I did that
about
before
these
94
days?
Com Games, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But they used to completely deplete you, and you go out and do a hard ride, and then once you ate, what would happen is that your body would store that food because it was so angry at you, if you can understand that a little bit. Your body's so angry at you that you go out and have this huge carbohydrate meal, and 24 hours later you'd have these huge glycogen stores. And that's how we actually, in 94, broke the world record. We actually did that.
Oh, interesting. Well,
but I wouldn't suggest it.
No, I'd suggest you get yourself some of this Sturka stuff and give it a go. Remember, if you go to bikebug.com/wheelhouse, pop your name in, you'll go into the draw. We'll draw that when we're drawing the bike as well. Thank you to Bikebug for supporting us. Hey, Merckxy is the social media master. He showed me a very funny video this morning of Remco Evenepoel, perhaps still high on the anaesthetic after getting his wisdom teeth out, doing a TikTok trend. So head over to his Instagram and look at that. It's very, very funny. Thank you for joining us for another episode of The Wheelhouse. Happy birthday, Joel Spreadborough.
Happy
Hank,
birthday, big fella.
Thanks for joining us. Merckxy, as always, thank you for your technical prowess.
And throwing us under the bus on a weekly basis.
On a
we
weekly
love
basis. I have
love
been
it.
sitting on my feet so that he couldn't take a wide shot and show our feet again this week. Like, share, subscribe. Tell everyone you know. We'll see you next week. Don't forget to enter for the bike. $149.99.
Yeah, Cole.
Spend. And
jump on Colnago.
Cole. You really need to get a bit more creative.